think in fourth grade I built a crossbow, and it was so powerful that I shot it and I couldn't even find the arrow. It just exploded on a tree.
I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
Prestige Living Podcast. So with that, who do you want to
Hello, welcome to Prestige Living, your Orange County podcast that delivers you extraordinary individuals who have taken the leap to own their own business and are subsequently crushing it in life. I'm your host, Jay O'Brien, with your co-host, Jordan Wilson.
Yep.
And your co-host, Kane German.
Coco-host like Cocoa Puffs or like
Coco Mo's, bro.
Right.
So it's been some time since we've gotten in here and recorded. For those of you who don't know, well, first and foremost, I went to Bali in Singapore.
Woo!
Whoop, whoop. That was awesome.
That means I got the place to myself for 10 days.
It was tough, man. But during my absence, I came back and our entire office was flooded. So you're probably going to hear some repair work being done. I don't know what they're doing on the roof. I think they just have jackhammers up there for fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're back, and today our guest is among one of the most unique individuals I've ever come across, who has made a business out of very unconventional forms of art, ranging from projects in the medical, energy, transportation, and military fields. He's what you call a technology-mediated artist and sculptor. Beginning blacksmithing at age 11 and later earning a degree of fine art in sculpture, he's created a platform to what is now one of the most innovative businesses in Orange County. A few of his clients include Google, Red Bull, Hermes, MGM Grand Hotel and Casino, Chipotle, Nokia, Microsoft, and the list goes on. It's an absolute honor to have him on the show, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome Eric Mesple. Eric,
Hello.
welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah!
Thank you.
No one else is going to clap. It's just me. I'm the asshole in the room.
It's just you. So, all right, man. I've looked at these videos online, and I can't even follow what the hell it is you do. So, say I just met you in an elevator or something, and it's like, what's the pitch? You know, what is it you do? Describe it in one or two sentences.
Wow, that's probably one of the hardest things to do. When
Right.
a lot of people always ask me, what do you do? And I basically tell them that I develop art and machines to do creative things for private entities, corporations, just kind of a whole different mix of fields. So it is really hard to tell people what I do because there's not just a single sentence or a word that describes exactly what I do. That's been a little bit tricky throughout the years.
So did the machinery part of it come into play in college, or was that something that was incorporated later on down the road?
It developed further in college. I definitely grew up doing a lot of creative stuff. My father was an artist, but he was also a physics major and architect, and so he was a very multi-skilled individual, and I kind of grew up around that and learned how to just build and create things. So I think it started obviously when I was young. But when I got into school, and this is why I moved out here, I went to grad school at UC Irvine, and I actually got a master's of science in art, computer science, and engineering. So it was like kind of a fusion of all three disciplines together. And basically the way I look at it is I create things in a creative way using all those different tools in different fields. So
Wow.
yeah.
Pretty cool. And you use them as like installations too.
Some of them are installations, some of them are permanent, some of them are just temporary. I try to stay a little bit out of the production side of stuff because it's a whole new environment, and I'm not 100% sure it's exactly the field I like, but on some of the production stuff, we just build something, for a one-time thing, and then it's done after that. I personally like to build something that's going to be there and lasting for a while, so more people can see it than just a commercial or something like that. So
So I would imagine, like, okay, so the people listening to this that have not seen these videos and they have no idea what these projects are that we're talking about, like, say you're at a bar, you're at a party or something, you're talking to someone and you don't physically have something to show them, and they say, like, well, what kind of stuff do you mean? Like, what have you created? Give me some examples. Like, what are some of those projects?
Okay, well, for some of the larger entities, the most recent one I had done was I built a giant, me and one other guy named Steve Leszewski, who I work with on multiple projects. We built a huge countdown clock to start the last year's Google I/O conference in San Francisco.
Just pulled that video up on your website.
Wow.
And so it basically, it started another artist's Rube Goldberg machine, which is basically a machine kind of like Mousetrap.
Right.
You know, one thing triggers another thing triggers another thing. But this clock was absolutely nuts. We designed, built, and engineered this thing in 5 weeks. It almost killed us. But it would count down from 30 minutes, and it would kind of build up a crescendo of different things that it was doing to launch the actual, this is the show, you know, this is the I/O conference. So it had a ball that was released every minute that would go down a track. It had a seconds wheel, a minutes wheel, and a tenth of a seconds wheel. And each one would trigger different things at different times during that 30-minute countdown.
What was testing like that for? Is like, oh, we're like at the last obstacle and it didn't trigger, so you had to watch everything go through. And at the end, it foiled because one thing missed.
Actually, everything went very smooth, but it was seriously down to like the last 5 minutes before the show started. You know,
Wow.
The one of our main issues with that was that they wanted something really kind of loud, you know, that would grab people's attention. So we designed and built the system. There's this gear system called a Geneva mechanism, and it was so loud and violent, it was scaring people at Google. So we had to actually tone it down, and that was kind of a hectic moment when we had built this thing and it was doing exactly what we wanted, and they said, no, this is going to scare everyone, so we actually had to tone it down, which was pretty funny.
Hey, remember how we wanted it loud? Yeah, can you take it down a notch?
It was violent. It was
The moral
very
of the
violent.
story is that people at Google scare easily.
Exactly. Were you going to Mountain View for that?
Yeah, up in San Francisco area.
Yeah.
It was actually at let's see if I can pronounce it right. The Mesple Center. I don't know. It's the downtown kind of convention center in San Francisco.
Okay.
So that's where Google actually held their
got it.
their conference. And then after the show, they liked it so much that they permanently had it installed at Google headquarters now. So
That is awesome.
nuts.
Congratulations.
yeah, it was fun.
So for those 5 weeks, it's safe to say that is your one and only project.
That was during the 5 weeks. Yeah.
Okay, so say that someone wanted to hire you right now for a project. How far out are you booked?
Well,
You're like
it
free,
depe-
totally free. I need some work.
No. I'm actually.
You
It depends
know
on the.
something?
It depends on the scope of the work. So right now I have a couple of odd projects. I'm actually running the side of this project that is for a major theme park. It's a ride. So I've designed and built a major ride for a theme park.
Are you allowed to say which one?
I'm not. So
Well, tell us afterwards, and you guys will have to wait.
Totally. But so this is a very random project I was approached with, and I'm just very good at figuring out ways of building things in unique new ways, and they were very interested. So
when did you discover that? You said I'm very good at finding ways to build things differently. You know, when did that click?
I actually think pretty young, because I think in 4th grade I built a crossbow, and it was so powerful that
You got
I
it stuck.
shot it and I couldn't even find the arrow. It just exploded on a tree. So my dad at that point was, like, kind of wanted us to start watching what I was actually going to make these days, so.
So did you ever have a W-2 job, or was it like you went to school, you were making things, and then naturally that just went into being self-employed?
Oh no, I've had some W-2 jobs here and
Yeah.
there. Growing up, being interested in the things I was interested in, it was really kind of hard to find a niche, especially at a young age, for making a career out of something like that. So there were definitely times where I did just a W-2 kind of job, for the summers or whatnot. And some of them were pretty funny. I'm glad that I'm not doing them anymore.
I think we've all had those. So I guess one of my questions is that have any of these W-2 jobs, have you ever had any of these where you depended on the income? Because more or less, some of these W-2 jobs we've had over the summer or when we were in high school, it's kind of just disposable income. You're not paying rent typically at that point. Maybe you're paying for a car or insurance or something. But have you ever lived on your own W-2 job and done that whole thing?
No, I don't think so, actually.
So basically, you've sustained your lifestyle
Yes.
and all of your expenses have been paid and whatnot through your trade
Yes,
exclusively.
I've been self-employed since maybe I was 20 or 21, probably right around there. So for a good 14 years, I think, I've been self-employed.
So how'd you figure out this is all monetizable? It's like of course you do it because you love it and you're like, cool. And then when and how did companies start hitting you up? Did you just invest any in advertisement? Did you make videos?
No, actually, so I've been I slacked a lot on my marketing side. I've been horrible at it, actually. And only until recently in the last, 3 months, maybe, I actually hired a rep who is really kind of getting me looking more professional on multiple platforms, which is great for me. But as far as being noticed and recognized, I was doing interesting things when I was younger, but out here, once I moved out here and my shop is actually technically in LA, I just started getting traffic coming in, and up in LA it seems like someone knows someone, and then all of a sudden they're at my shop checking out my stuff, and that's kind of how a lot of these things unfolded.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome. Just develop that word of mouth.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even have a business card until about a year ago, maybe.
Dude.
So
yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's highly effective. You got the word of mouth, the referral-based business. So when you've got Google who contacts you versus this theme park, do you know specifically how those people came in contact with you?
Yeah, so Google actually contacted my friend who does the Rube Goldberg machines, and so through him, he needed basically someone to design, build, and create this crazy countdown clock. And so it was kind of through him, actually, but Google knows that I did it and Steven did it, and we got full-blown credit and whatnot. But it was actually through another guy that we got that job itself. And he's had a couple other jobs as well from larger entities, but this one was, I think, a little bit more intense than some of the other projects he had done. So he talked with me and another guy, and we said we could do it.
That's nuts.
Eric, I've got a question for you. So we had an artist in an earlier episode, and she said in the very beginning of her career, she was a little scared to charge a certain price because she didn't want to offend anybody, and it took her a while to get that confidence in her product to be able to charge what it's worth. Did you go through a similar thing, or how did you determine how much?
I think we always will go through that kind of at a point, especially if you're doing something that you really love to do because you just want to do it, and you're excited about these projects. Now, more on my just kind of sculptural stuff that is not, these larger machines for, entities and companies. That's been the tough one because I've been doing metalwork since I was a young kid, and I have realized now that what I am able to do with it, most people can't do, and kind of separating that into a value is hard to do because I just really enjoy doing it. You know what I mean?
You don't want to feel selfish.
You don't want to feel selfish, but and this is the thing that my rep has been very beneficial for me, is kind of slapping me around a little bit, saying, no, these are amazing. Quit charging peanuts for these things. This is how we need to go about this. So I think for artists it's hard because we are so critical about what we're doing in the first place, and then on top of that, coming up with a value for it is kind of hard.
Are there any projects that you do not take?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
what are some examples?
I'm trying to think of what some of the recent ones have been. So I was contacted by the NFL Network. They wanted to do a pilot about kind of like the Mythbusters for sports science. And their biggest one right now was that they wanted to have a machine that showed the force of a running back and a linebacker colliding at different speeds and at different distances. And it sounded fascinating. I definitely wanted to do it, but this was more of a pilot for the show. They have no money and maybe could pay for materials, and they need it within 10 days. And these are kind of the projects I get presented to a lot. And in the past, I would kill myself to try to do something like this, to get in with something like that. And I feel like that's okay. You know, I'm definitely always willing to do things at a lesser rate for future endeavors and stuff like that. But now I feel I'm so busy that I can't even do that. You know, if you don't have the funds and the time and stuff, I have to, you know, say sorry and move on. So.
Wait, with that being said, how would you go about building that though?
Well,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's like some real cool shit.
Well, I thought that, you know, basically in my head, I was thinking that it has to be visually, you know, interesting for people to watch this. So of course things blowing up, smashing into each other, and getting an effect of that would be the primary goal of a project like that. So I thought of 2 sleds on a track system, where basically they would have different mannequins on each one. And, you know, mannequins are kind of expensive, but they do kind of blow up when you slam them really hard. And I don't ask me how I know that, but I do. So I thought of that just for a
you were behind all the Crash Dummy stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought for a project like that, it would be interesting. And, you know, you could always replace the mannequins for each shot if you wanted to or whatnot. But that was just kind of at the tip of my head what I was thinking about. And, yeah.
So when you're getting new work, are there certain competitors that come to mind in your field where it's like, oh yeah, it's either going to be me that they call or these 2 guys?
On certain things, I think yes. You know, there's a lot of large companies in LA that deal with kind of the entertainment industry, and I think that some of my stuff kind of blends into that field a little bit. But usually those entities are hired for large productions, like a movie. Like they want them to do the whole movie, all the effects in the movie, all the machines in the movie and stuff like that. Whereas I would rather be selected for very specific specialized things that a lot of people don't deal with. And so yeah, for the most part, I don't run into a lot of people. But I know a bunch of people and work with a bunch of people that are phenomenally gifted, amazingly creative, and super smart that could do it as well. And those are the people I like to surround myself around and work with, you know.
That's awesome.
So do you think that you'll ever get to a point where you will want your company to be that big?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. I think no, actually. When I really think about it, because I feel like I would be so consumed with the business side then. When it gets to being that big, then I would lose a lot of my kind of creative free ability to just dive in and get dirty, and which I still like to do.
Yeah, they said they want to keep their personalized touch on their.
That's
their
a very
brand.
artistic thing to say. You know, it's different than a business mind usually. You know, business is like about scalability and profit, and you know, how can we get the most for less and that sort of thing. So when there's that authentic appeal to your work, you don't want to sacrifice any bit of it.
Not at all. And I think that in the long run, I'll be doing just fine with the things I'm creating, and to be at that level, but not have a big corporation or run a big crew, you know. Right now, typically on jobs, depending on what job it is, you know, I will either work by myself or with 1 or 2 people, maybe up to like 10 on a specific project that I'm doing. Now, obviously I'm involved with multiple other departments within a large project, but I try to keep things nice and tight and just have a kind of a creative atmosphere.
So right now your team is just you and your friend Steve?
Me, my friend Steve. I have another guy named Terry Sandin who is phenomenal. He and this is just we're working on just this one specific project right now, but Terry's just a genius. He basically helped write AutoCAD, and yeah, and I mean these are the people I work around.
I've heard of it.
He designed the Daft Punk helmets. He's opening up a tech shop in LA. You know, he's met with Obama. Super smart guy. Stevie is a kind of a crazy engineer, brilliant guy that developed laser systems for the military, and also worked for, I can't remember if it was Boeing or one of the other companies that was, you know, into
Engineer artists, man.
engineer artists. I mean, a lot of these guys they've done stuff for SRL, which was a kind of crazy art entity in San Francisco that was very popular in the late 90s, early 2000s, where they'd build machines that would just, you know, blow up, fight each other, do all sorts of weird stuff. I mean, one project that Stevie was known for was he built a machine gun that shot 2x4s about 100 miles an hour, and you could log on as a guest on your computer and control it. So I think it lasted like a week or two, and they found out that, you know, people are just logging onto this thing and shooting it all over the place, so they kind of had to tone it down, I guess.
Wow, this totally brings the idea that we always talk about to another level, which is you're the average of the 5 people closest to you. I mean, you know, for us, we think of, you know, I sold 20, 30 houses last year. I got to hang out with the person who sells a couple hundred, and this is like, nah, I hang out with dudes who chill with presidents, and
He designed lasers for the military.
Yeah.
It kind of trumps a lot of that stuff. I think that's amazing, man. So out of all these people that have hired you and for how long you've been in it, can you tell us a story about your number one worst nightmare client?
Let me think here.
We want you to name names too.
No. I won't name him a name. Man, that's a tough one because I do run into a lot of issues often, but I can't really pick one that has just been a complete disaster from head to toe. I would say that there's different problems with each project I run into. If I'm working with artists, sometimes I'll run into egos, which is huge, especially since I was always a younger person than most artists were, that, you know, they didn't want to have their flame smothered in any way, shape, or form. So there were a lot of times where I would kind of have to just actually be doing the dirty work and figuring everything out and getting no credit in the past, you know, and I've decided that that's just not happening anymore. There's not one that actually just really sticks out in my head. I think that because it's such an odd field, I run into odd problems on every single one, and sometimes it is personnel, but generally I try to explain things very calm, and so that every type of person can understand what I'm doing, and what we're trying to do as a team, and the people I surround myself around now generally don't have those egos because we're all pretty awesome at what we do, and
you all come together for the love of what you do.
We do.
Like the engineering art thing.
Exactly. So yeah, for the most part, not one exactly sticks out in my head.
Eric, I have a question for you. Going back, you said you have been self-employed since you were about 20 years old.
Yeah, right around, yeah.
You know, when I was 20, I don't even know what I was thinking, but when you decide that you want to go out and do your own thing and depend on yourself for this, how was your support system? I would imagine with your dad being an artist, you kind of got it, but
as far as like
you received like a lot of encouragement?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, my whole family was very much into the arts growing up and music and whatnot. So they just really kind of helped me and pushed me to do things that were interesting to me. And, you know, like I said, I think I told you guys, the first tool my father bought me was a forge and an anvil when I was 11, which is a very odd thing to buy a young kid, you know.
Kids are getting like bikes and skateboards, like, here you go, son, your very own anvil.
Yeah, exactly. So they were always very encouraging on my interests, which was great.
Now, I mean, traditionally, when you think of an artist who is going to make this a career and kind of sacrifice everything, there's a lot of exactly that sacrifice. There's most artistic fields, it's pretty difficult to make money, whether it be painting or sculpting or music or anything like that. You're in such a different niche field, to your point earlier, that I would imagine it can be very lucrative, and it is a little different than, I don't know what your family's background is, but I'd be willing to bet that the majority of your family members probably didn't make a killing in art. Is that fair to say?
That's totally fair to say.
So it's different in that regards, that you've found this niche that has been able to provide, I'm assuming just based on the size of your projects and whatnot, a good income for you.
It's been getting better and better. I mean, I have definitely walked through muck, and it didn't ever feel bad for me because I knew where I wanted to go and how to get there.
Tell us about that. Tell us about walking through muck.
Okay, so just like you said with painters and other artists and whatnot, it is hard to figure out how to make a living on stuff like that, especially when you're starting off. So kind of what I did was I basically got very, very good at building other famous artists' sculptures. And meaning I would get castings of their sculptures, and I would actually assemble them, build them, put them together for them, and make them look right. So I was doing other people's work, getting no credit for it, but it was paying well enough, and I was learning skill sets. I was learning how to do different tools, use different tools. I was learning how to interact with engineers, city council members, all different types of people I had to run into doing these projects. So that would keep me afloat long enough so that I could build my own stuff at the same time. And I've been doing that for a long, long time. And now I actually only have one artist I still do stuff for occasionally. But it's more of a loyalty thing now because she really has provided for me a life that I was able to come out here to California and go to grad school, and do all these other things and bring my business out. So right now with her, it's a little bit more of a loyalty thing. But I would say it's getting better and better and better every year, and I'm slowly doing more of what I'm interested in and less of what other people need. And I think that that's kind of the transition. So yeah, in the past, it's been hard because, I also am an instructor at Art Center occasionally. It's been coming less and less and less because I'm busy, obviously, but the thing that I was always surprised with, even going to school and now working with students, now that I'm older, is that a lot of them think that they're just going to come out and be an artist. And I'm kind of like, oh my God, you have no freaking clue what you're getting into here. But I try to figure out ways that maybe these kids can keep doing creative things while working on their stuff in the back. So if they're a painter, maybe they can do design and painting for, I don't know, like billboards or large, projects things that pay, but it's still in their field of interest at least, and maybe from there they'll meet more and more people where they can slowly make a transition as well.
So when you were saying that you were doing these sculptures and then that way you could have time to do your own thing.
Yes.
So what does that look like? On the side you're doing your own thing. What do you do with these own things? Are they just part of your quote portfolio, or are you trying to sell these things?
Well, so that's been interesting because I was very much trying to just try things that no one had thought of and do them in artistic ways. So
what were some of those first projects?
Well, so some of my first projects were, especially when I started getting into kinetic sculptures, kind of more mechanical sculptures and whatnot, was, let me think here. I'll use this one. This is a great one. I built 320 huge electromagnets, and I built a structure for them to sit in, kind of in like an array. And then I put a piece of aluminum over the front, and I have a camera tracking system that looks down upon people. And I wanted to basically make a wall that mimicked what viewers were doing in front of it. But I wanted to do it differently because a lot of people have done something kind of similar to that. And so I found this stuff a long time ago called ferrofluid, which is magnetically responsive fluid. And so this project I had done, basically it would, the video would interpolate the information of someone walking up to this, and it would trigger on and off magnets to form a silhouette out of them in real time out of liquid on a wall, because the wall was being cycled, the fluid is being cycled over the wall. So that was kind of my first one. Now, I wasn't building it to sell it, you know, because who in the world is going to buy this thing? And at that stage too, you know, I had to work multiple jobs to even afford everything I needed for that, you know. So I look at these as more proof of concept, like, hey, look what I can actually do. If you want to fund the heck out of me, I can make some badass stuff. You know, that's kind of where I'm.
So you still have that?
I do.
I've watched that video on YouTube like 3 times now, and I'm still amazed by it. And I heard you in here earlier watching it.
Yes, I was.
You have to like, the explanation is great, but you have to see it to believe it. Honestly,
right. Yeah,
yeah, it is awesome. Okay, so what about like just you mentioned sculpture, so maybe something more basic that's not necessarily functional.
Okay.
If you were to do a sculpture, like for someone in Orange County, and you said, hey, like, I don't know how big you make these things, but someone wants to hire you for a sculpture, can you go over like maybe an average price range of something that might cost for that?
Depending on what it is. If it's just a more traditional style sculpture where it's not kinetic and it's not, you know, doing all these things, they can range from, I don't know, a couple thousand to 100,000 maybe, you know, I mean, if it's big.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's a very,
just depends.
Yeah, it totally depends. It's really hard to put a number on something like that, you know.
Yeah. So what would you say that your biggest sacrifice is to date?
Maybe my social life. I mean, when I
tell
actually
us about that.
Well, when I'm thinking about it, when I was used to live in Colorado, I grew up there. I was very social, had a bunch of friends, kind of even had like the out of control house, you know. So I was very much a social guy. There was some point where, and I think it started when I moved out here, that I realized it wasn't that important to me anymore, and I just wanted to really focus in on getting ahead and doing different things and kind of establishing myself as far as what I want to be known for and doing. So now my problem is I get approached with all these different projects. So I'm very busy, and then on top of that, I still want to do my own stuff. So, you know, I work probably 70 plus hours a week at least.
Are you a single guy?
I am.
Do you see it being possible to have a relationship?
Probably not right now at the moment, but you know, I still have fun. You know, I still go out every now and then and whatnot. But
of course,
yeah.
My curiosity is because you know, we meet a lot of entrepreneurs, and really when you're gonna invest so much of your time and really not just time, your life. You know, you put so much of your time, energy, resources, money into this sort of stuff that at the end of the day, you know, is there that time? Is there even that space to include something so serious? And is it right now or is it forever? Who knows? But like, I'm always interested to get people's take on this. Like, in the future, do you see yourself having children? Do you see yourself having a serious relationship or even getting married? Or is it like, you know what, that kind of doesn't fit my lifestyle because I'll probably always do this?
Well, I think it would be nice someday to have those things. For right now, at least, I don't see it being possible. At least something that's serious, because serious relationships take energy and time, and that is something I don't have much of, spare. But I will always be doing what I'm doing. I feel like my whole life. I think that only the biggest transition will be the day that I really don't have to do stuff for other people and entities. I just get to do my own stuff, and maybe they will buy it, you know, instead of me trying to you know, do projects for other people. I'm just doing my projects, and then they are bought straight up like that. That, I think, will be the time when I will be able to have more free time to kind of work on my social life, I guess, a little
Right.
bit, you know.
So you eventually want to eliminate commissions.
Commission. Well, first of all, I definitely want to eliminate doing art for other artists, and I'm close to that, I think. But I would probably still take commissions if it was a very interesting project.
So you get the
Like a
point where you
challenge.
can select and choose.
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I think it's getting better and better and better every year. So I mean, it's maybe down the tunnel. You know, I can't quite see it.
So what are a couple like? Do you have a favorite book or something that where you listen to or read or something that really inspires you or has impacted you in a significant way that has caused you to learn and apply that to your business?
Let me think here. I'm not much of a reader because I have to do so much technical reading all the time that
Right.
by the time I'm done, I do not want to just have a relaxing book and read. I would say that music has probably been more than anything for me.
Do you listen to music while you're working?
All day.
What kind of music?
Man, I have such a diverse type of music.
Do you
I
have a
like.
preference based on the type of project or time of day?
Not necessarily. I think a lot of it has to do the mood I'm in and the way I feel at that moment. And music, I think, really kind of either pushes me into different modes that I have to be in. So let's say I'm doing a large sculpture where I'm just having to, you know, weld or grind something together, and I need that energy. Maybe I'll put on some heavy metal and just kind of bust through this thing for a couple of hours, you know. Or if I'm doing some more complicated kind of figuring out numbers and crunching, maybe something a little more relaxing and whatnot. But I feel like music plays a huge influence in what I do, and just kind of getting me into specific zones and moods.
Any specific albums you have that go-tos, like, oh man, I need to punch something and weld and grind?
Well, I will say it's been a while, but back in the day, I loved Tool. Tool always got me into a lot of interesting moments because they kind of would go from melodic sounding stuff to then really
To, like,
hard
the
and
primal
heavy.
stuff.
Yes. So
types
back in
of
the day, I really enjoyed Tool. I also grew up with Primus. My dad took me to go see Primus when I was 12 years old. It was my first concert.
That's rad.
So
Primus and an anvil.
yeah,
That's rad.
exactly. Yeah, my dad's a hip guy, you know. So he took my sister to go see Van Halen. That was her first show.
I want to be his daughter.
Yes.
So yeah, I like all different types of music for the most part. It's a big influence in my life for sure.
What's a favorite quote of yours or a philosophy that you live by?
Let me think here. What would be a good quote? I think a philosophy I live by for the most part is that, you know, you're never done, really. You know, there's always more to be had and more to be learned and more to obtain and gain. And whether that looks on the social, like the typical social level of things, you know, because it's hard, especially out here in Orange County, where everything is very materialistic and, you know, obtaining things for kind of a status level. I feel like my philosophy is I want to obtain all the knowledge and all the things that I'm interested in to keep furthering and moving myself in positive directions. And, you know, a lot of it is surrounding myself around the right people. You know, I think when I was younger, we wanted to all have fun. Sometimes you're not around the right people. You know, now that I'm older, I want to be around the right people. I definitely don't want to be the smartest fish in the room. I want to surround myself around other people that are smarter than me. And I want to also learn a whole new different set of skills and things that I'm not familiar with, because I feel like the more you know with different fields, you can kind of culminate those things into something very original.
Just like the way you did it with your degrees, like
Exactly.
science and art. And
Exactly. So my philosophy is, I guess, just keep your mind open, keep learning, and surround yourself around the right people.
I think that that's a very common a common thing that we hear among entrepreneurs, because I think in maybe a traditional sense of, you know, jobs or different trades and whatnot, people always say, oh, this guy's really successful, or would you say you're successful? Or it's like it's a milestone that you'll never achieve with that mindset, because you're, to your point, you're never done. You know, right. So even when you look back, it's probably hard for you to say, look at all I've accomplished, because there's so much more on the horizon that you're like, actually, I guess that was cool, and I guess that was a big deal, but I'm looking so far forward that I haven't even really
digested the past.
Yeah, it's not even a checkpoint, really.
Right.
It's just kind of like you're just seamlessly moving forward, and I think that's really indicative of a business owner, a successful one at least.
Yes. Well, and I think that each one, there are different levels and scales of being successful, and what each person considers that to be, and I think for me, I feel very successful because I'm in something I enjoy. I'm constantly learning. Every project is different, and I get to work with different people on every project, and so for me, it keeps things fresh, interesting, and I want to keep doing it.
So if you were to speak to somebody right now, say like at a graduation, someone who's 22, 23 years old, who has just finished a degree, whether it be in fine arts or something otherwise, and they're thinking about becoming self-employed and going on their own, what's some advice that you would give them?
Man, this is a tough one, because first of all, I actually don't get along with a lot of artists, which is kind of odd. I feel like traditionally a lot of artists are more interested in the lifestyle of being an artist. Like, I want to sit here and paint this beautiful thing and blah blah blah. Well, that's not the way the real world works. So I would I think do the same thing I've kind of done, where try to tell them, look, let's figure out a plan here for you to be as creative as possible, but still really work hard and keep moving forward, so that you can reach that moment in life, or hopefully reach that moment in life. So I would say a big, thing I would tell people is kind of just my philosophy is like, keep learning and keep pushing yourself, and push yourself hard, because every project I take, I don't necessarily know how to do it when I jump into it. I don't know how to do it, but I learn how to do it. I know I can learn how to do it. So that's kind of what I would tell them, is like, take on things that are above you and figure it out.
I like that.
That's awesome, Eric. So where can people find you online?
So I do have a website, and I am on Instagram, and I have a business page on Facebook as well. And I have a very odd last name. So I was lucky that everything is just my last name. It's Mesple. It's spelled M-E-S-P-L-E. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and I have a website too. So. All
right. There you have it, Eric Mesple. Thank you so much for being on the show. You have really provided some incredible insight, and it's just one of the most fascinating fields and trades that I've ever really been exposed to.
Cool.
So, again, thank you so much. Check him out, Eric Mesple, mesple.com.
Mesple.com.
And on Instagram and Facebook.
Yep, just Mesple.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
All right.
If you would like to be on the Prestige Living podcast, or know someone that would be a great guest, go to www.prestigelivingpodcast.com. We'd love to hear your story.
As a reminder to all of our listeners, RE/MAX Prestige services all of Orange County for tenants, buyers, and sellers looking for VIP service, zero pressure, and optimal results. Whether you're looking for your first condo at $150,000 or selling your $5 million luxury home, we are your solution. This week's testimonial comes from Elizabeth Waters, and this one's specifically interesting because this is for a client who we did not close a transaction for, but simply assisted, which is a big part of our business, being the trusted professional, whether it results in an immediate transaction or not. Elizabeth writes, "It is not very often you find someone in your field who is so kind and truly wants what is in the best interest of the client. Thank you for all of your shared information and taking the time to sort through my options. When I do resolve the issue, I will definitely want you to represent me on my next purchase. I will keep you informed. So, there you have it, another example of our core philosophy, representing our clients' best interests at all times. Like us on Facebook by searching Remax Prestige, and feel free to reach us online at prestigelivingpodcast.com.